Here.
Here.
Here. Here. Thank you. Before we start the meeting, I would just like to reference item 4A, which is a public hearing with the school committee participation tonight relative to the town council's preliminary budget for this fiscal year 2018 versus in 2019 as adopted on March 19th of 2018. This hearing will address all funds contained within the council's preliminary budget. We welcome any comment. I would like to start off asking the town manager, Rob Zarneski, if he has any comments, and then I will defer to Dr. Stringfellow as well.
Actually, what I'm going to do is just briefly state that this is the second of two public hearings that are required by the charter. This is the public's opportunity to comment on both the council's preliminary budget and on the school committee's budget. This is an exercise we go through every year here in South Kingstown. We are required to do it by April 18th of each year. We're getting this one done the day before, so we're doing just fine. And I would like to ask Trish to provide just a brief summary of the state of where we are, if you've got, if you can work from the paper. That's great.
Just an update on where we're at right now as far as the assessed valuation, tax rate, and estimated increase in the tax dollars on the average homeowner. Recent numbers have indicated that we have a slight increase in our assessed valuation from our budget work sessions and town council preliminary adopted budget on March 20th. At that time, we were reporting an increase of 0.8%. Currently, we're up to 0.93%, almost a 1% increase in the assessed valuation. We may see a slight change in that as we approach the tax roll on June 15th when Jean has to certify the tax roll, but probably not a lot. There won't be a lot of movement between now and then. The tax rate at that time, we were reporting at $15.71. We are currently at $15.69. And the average homeowner tax increase, we're estimating to be about $132 a year, which is down from $140 for which we reported in March. So that's where we're at this time.
So the numbers are moving in the right direction, and maybe if we could push this back to May 18th, we'd be in better shape. But really, the increase in the grand list or in the tax levy, the value of all real estate in the town of South Kingstown is good news, and we're coming into the building season, so it's nice to see it early this year, and hopefully it bodes well for next year.
Thank you, Rob. Dr. Stringfellow, would you like to add anything?
It's always a pleasure being invited here, and we really appreciate the town council's support of our budget and some of the innovative programs that we were able to bring forth this year.
Thank you. Tonight's intention is to open this to the public hearing, of course. We thank everybody who has taken the time to come out or who is listening at home because they are involved in what we do in the town. At this point, I would entertain the motion for any members who would like to come up to speak from the audience. If you do, please come up to the podium and state your name, and we entertain listening to any comments, questions, or concerns you may have. Okay, seeing none, we can defer back to the table. Is there anything, Raisa?
I just want to quickly talk about the increased positions that you all approved, and thank you again for those. So we had a list of 6, and we were able to approve a high school teacher who would be overseeing the addition of 15 career pathways. We were able to approve a van to a person to drive the van to transport the students, so we're still in the process of acquiring the van. And then a social emotional learning teacher, leader, coordinator, and a family community engagement teacher with a focus on grades 5 through 12. There were two things that we weren't able to get this year, and we did hear from people about the elementary teacher, in particular, an additional itinerant for the Spanish language. And so I just wanted to speak to that a little bit. When I first ran in 2010, I was talking about increases in foreign language, and there is a program with URI that is called, I have to look it up, the Mentor Tutor Internship Program. So that was something that I talked to a professor at URI about, and I was thinking that maybe we could look into that for next year since we can't approve it as a budget item, if the superintendent would maybe talk to Pauline and see if she could get in touch with somebody to talk about that program, and maybe we can get that for people next year for free.
Do you know what department in URI?
It was foreign language. It was a gentleman, yeah, in the foreign language, but it was 8 years ago, so I don't really remember the details.
Any other questions, comments here at the table?
I just had a thought regarding the van situation. I guess in my mind would be, why not lease a van rather than wait for one to be donated?
I think that sounds great. How does the town council feel? Do we have any dollar amounts that we can connect to that? Or?
I'm sorry. I don't know what it doesn't have to be a fancy van, but it can even be a used van. But I guess it's the liability insurance and then also the payments on a monthly basis.
I think it's definitely worth looking at. We started down a path where we expected one thing with a van that was available, right? I mean, we know the story. And then you start taking steps based on that, and sometimes maybe it just takes that one step back. I'm not even sure how big of a budget item it would be either way. We can figure that out. It's probably worth a discussion. But there's the broader issues of where does that program, which was initially just a free van, what does that look like in 4 iterations later when there's, when we identify additional needs, that kind of thing. So depending on the numbers associated with a lease, that could become almost an unsustainable path, potentially, or not. We don't know. We just don't know.
But I also think, like, if you can show that it would truly benefit everyone, that maybe then you could get folks that would want to potentially, you could sell advertising on the van as an example. Wrap it and have someone wrap it, a business, and it's driving around town all the time, and it's Flood Ford or something like that, or Remax or something in that. Well, not my. Sorry. Liberty Rentals. Yeah, it could be a Liberty Rentals advertisement. I mean, there's different ways to do it. One quick example: when we used to have a moving van, and we zeroed out the moving van. We leased it. I think it was like $700 and change a month, and we paid nothing for it because we had advertisers on the van. And when I say van, it wasn't a van; it was a box truck. So it was just a thought.
Any other comments, questions here at the table? Owen, please.
So, as we're thinking ahead to finishing up this budget, but then several budgets in the future, one of the numbers that Trish, you started talking about was that the growth, taxable base growth, and we've heard different It's one of those numbers that when I've looked at the town budget for year after year after year, thinking, okay, that can be one of those numbers that helps offset the reductions without affecting an individual taxpayer. Is 1%, is that seems like it's been steady for the last 10 or 15 years. Yeah.
Preliminarily, that's what we had in our budget as an estimate. So it's a good average.
Right. And that's historically, I think, I mean, I remember.
Absolutely.
I think 2006 saying, is 1% the right number? Has there ever been any indications that we might think about moving in a different direction, looking at different commercial properties that could ease the burden on some of the residential taxpayers, especially in some of the next couple of years?
I can just speak to what I know, and I've been in the town manager's office before, and he has this map that he loves that shows all the different zones in town and what's commercial and what's not. And there's been a lot of discussion about what we're going to do, especially in discussing the vacant buildings and how we need to change some of our zoning areas and how we really need to expand our commercial areas because, like you said, there's just no growth, and we can't keep going to the taxpayers for the burden to absorb it. So I don't know if any concrete ideas have come out of it yet, but it's on the radar and it's in discussion in a way that it hasn't been before.
One of the things that I've been thinking about for a while, even before I got involved, was the fact that for many years, I think people have wanted South Kingstown to remain strictly a bedroom community, but over time, that's really not sustainable. So what can we do to attract more businesses, develop maybe potentially even new commercial areas in our town, and make it attractive for businesses to want to relocate here or locate here. And not only are they going to have a great place to work, they're going to have a great place to live. I mean, we have one of the most marketable towns in the state, in my opinion, with a lot of resources from the ocean to rural to suburban to city-like. There's no reason why we can't attract businesses to our town.
I think part of the discussion, too, that we had was by changing the commercial districts, and we can sort of pull URI from Kingston into town. You know, if they wanted to expand and sort of have these little hive spots within South Kingstown so that they can infiltrate, if you will, the town, it'd be good for everybody involved. So it's something we're looking at very specifically, and I think that I'm hoping in the next few years we're going to see some changes.
Roland, so what they're saying, I'll back up. We're starting to have discussions about encouraging more commercial zoning. As far as once you accomplish that, there's no silver bullet. You make the conditions conducive to doing business, and you don't have to give tax treaties, and you don't have to give special treatment. You just make the conditions conducive, and people will move here.
Madam President, Roland, you had asked last night as well about growth in the housing sector, and particularly affordable housing. I didn't have numbers at the tip of my tongue last night, but the numbers are these. We have 9,602 housing units in South Kingstown as of last week. 10% of that would be 960, which is the state goal for affordable low, moderate income housing. We are at 499.
You don't have an update for this week? Or?
It just so happens that those numbers are off of last week's tax levy report, so we've got those from last week. I will point out that one of the things that has been said here or two of the things that have been said here that have to be really carefully balanced is that South Kingstown has got an incredible mix of open space and of, just wonderful amenities that are attractors. And as you think about how to grow the grand list through commercial development and residential development, you have to make sure that you preserve what makes it attractive. That's a trick, but it's a trick that I really believe can be pulled off in South Kingstown. You don't abandon the green space strategies. You don't abandon the careful planning. But 1% commercial zoning is probably not the right number. It's probably a number higher than that to get to. And it may be infill and it may be redevelopment, but those strategies take time. We're not going to see a change in the budget during the 6-year capital budget planning horizon that's radically different. This is going to take a decade. This is going to take a long time to work through.
And Rob, it's one place that I don't mind government moving slow.
Rob, in your research, when you were looking up how many affordable housing units that we had in South Kingstown, did you happen to notice, I know the state strives for 10%, are other municipalities meeting that goal, or is South Kingstown alone in?
Yeah, it's not. Most municipalities, not just in Rhode Island, but in most places where states have set a benchmark, very seldom do you see a majority of communities hitting it.
I would be interested in just seeing how that benchmark was established, if it was just an arbitrary number that was picked, or what research it was based on. If you ever come across that, I'd love you to pass it along.
I think you could look at those numbers. I've only been here a short time, 6 years, but have listened to this prior to that. You will get those numbers in the heavily density and most populated areas because we have that up in the northern end of the state. As I said last night, you have Woonsocket, you have Central Falls, you have Providence, you have Pawtucket. Where you come to suburbia, if you will, it's a little bit more difficult because home prices are higher. Demographics are different. We're at 5.6.2, if I'm not mistaken, percent. And we're okay down here, Charlestown, Westerly, Narragansett. Some of those are not even up to that scale, but we're not at the 10%. We're not going to be. And as a course of building, I'll just say this, we ask when developers come in that whatever projects they propose, 20% be to low to mod income to help us meet that requirement. But we're not there, and nor is anybody that's in suburban, at least not in my tenure here. It's not happened.
I just wanted to mention it from a state level because I sat on the board of Habitat for many years. I think what it really comes down to, and it's kind of the elephant in the room, is that a lot of people don't want it in their backyard. And that's the unfortunate reality when it comes to affordable housing.
It's also
I think that's also a problem for commercial development, too.
It's also, though, important to remember that this is a definitional thing as well. It really is deed restricted to a particular percentage of the median income for the area. That's not to say that we don't have households that people bought many years ago that have low mortgages. It's not, this is a very, tight definition of what we mean when we say affordable housing.
Any other comments, questions? Anybody from the audience? Okay. Are there any other issues that we'd like to have addressed tonight? None.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. If there's nothing moving forward, could I please have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned, and the time is 7:22.